All right, so we're recording. I'm here with my great friend, Laura. So let's get into Java arrays, right?
Okay.
Cool. So can you read out to me, do you have the syntax on hand for a Java array? Not to throw you a curveball
Okay.
right from the get-go.
Okay, here's a statement that declares an array reference variable, or,
Okay.
shows an example. Okay, so we would do this, int,
Mm-hmm.
square bracket,
Mm-hmm.
numbers,
Mm-hmm.
semicolon,
Okay.
and then in the next line, numbers
Okay.
equals new int,
Mm-hmm.
square bracket, and 6.
6
So,
goes inside of the square brackets.
square bracket, perfect, yes. So the first example is a statement that declares an array reference variable. And then the second one, declaring the array reference variable doesn't create an array. The next step is to use a new keyword to create an array and assign its address to the numbers variable. So that's what we did. Those 2 steps.
Initialize and bind to reference. Got you. So if we were to do a system.out.println here, and we're to pass it in numbers, can we do that? Let's see. I've got to wait for the cold start because it's got to warm up first.
Yes.
So it looks like when we try to print an array as is, it gives us a memory address. But what if we were to tell it we want to print out the first number in numbers? Will it give us that 6?
No, it just gave you your 0 because we've just made that 6 is the size of it, I think.
Got you. So initialize and bind a reference.
But we didn't tell you what they were.
Size to 6. So in this case, it doesn't look like there is anything inside of numbers just yet, or at least not anything that we intentionally added. So if we wanted to, let's say, put the number 3 inside of numbers, how could we do so?
You would tell it you want to put it in numbers, and you would assign the location you want to put it. So if you want to put it in the first place, you would
how does that look?
Yeah, so you're putting 6 in the first spot of your.
Let me change that to 3 just so I know it's a unique number.
Right.
And so if I try and print out numbers index 0,
you should get a 3.
Yay.
Yay.
So we needed 1, 2, 3, 4 lines in order to, this time, because we did it step by step by step.
Right, in order to print a 3, yeah.
Yeah, if we wanted to, we could do this all on one line, or have the declaration, the initialization, and the assignment of the number 3. We could do that all on one line and then do the print line. So let's try and see what that might look like. Int numbers so it's going to balk at me because I'm doing the same name twice. I'm just going to comment out my initial code here. And it looks like I can't pass the number 6 here, so I just won't. And I want to, have there be 6 spaces in this array. So I can just pass random dummy numbers, though that seems kind of like a lot of work if I don't want to have to manually describe them. But let's just say I want to have the same exact result. This is one way that I should get the same exact result. That I've defined my array with valid syntax.
Right.
And it has the number 3 in the first index. What the other numbers are, I don't really care just yet. because I haven't told it explicitly otherwise. I wonder if I could actually just have these be empty and not say anything. No, it doesn't look like it's happy, but let me try running that and see if it explodes. So yeah, it's saying you're not allowed to do that. I mean,
totally
I'm allowed
not
to do
happy.
to just do 3, but then if I want to explicitly say that there were 6 numbers, that this array should be of length 6, if I don't give it 6 numbers to start with, then I'm probably not allowed to do something like this here, where, you know, I say, hey, I'm going to give it only the number 3, but I'm going to try and print out index number 2.
Right.
So it should give me a warning here, or an error, like I'm trying to go out of bounds. Yep. Array index out of bounds exception. Let me just make sure that this works also for our initial code. So our initial code, we said that this numbers array is going to be of length 6. We should be able to print out, index 5 even. Just give that a run. Yep. And it looks like it initializes all of those numbers, all those empty indices with the number 0. So if I do, let's say if I did a for loop, int I equals 0, I is less than 6, I plus plus, and we're just going to loop over and print out each. I'm already kind of jumping the gun here.
No, I see what you're doing.
I'm going to try and print out every single element of numbers. So if I do this, should be 3 and then 5 zeros.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. And so to do the same thing as above, but on one line. Does the same as above, but on one line. Okay. So here's a demo of making an array, giving an initial value of some kind, and just one index, and then also reading out all the values. Read out, print all the values in all the arrays. You could say values, you could also say items. Say values.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is our initial use case here, right?
Right.
Did you have some other syntax there that you wanted to try at the same time? Any syntax that stands out to you before we move on to the next thing to try?
No.
That looks okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that looks good.
We can always come back to this. So we've answered, what is a syntax to declare Java array? That is this line 3. That would just declare an empty array, but with no length or values inside of it. It's just an array reference. And then we went over how to initialize an array with data. That would be, for example, line 4 initializes with blank dummy data, which defaults to 0 with integers. With string, it might be an empty string. And then we also manually assigned to the first index the number 3. We have not passed arrays as arguments. I'm sorry, I wrote arguments.
Oh, did we?
Mm-hmm. We don't have any functions here really yet. So.
Yeah, no, we didn't. Did we? How can we use a for loop to fill the array? Yeah.
Yes, so we can use a for loop to fill the array. Let's put that down as use a for loop to populate an array. So let's say we want the numbers in this array to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For example, use store the numbers 1 through 6. So we could do that, simply take our for loop from above, and we could actually mutate directly and say that each item of numbers is going to be equal to the value of I. But I starts at 0 and ends at 5. This might not be exactly what we wanted. I'm also going to move this printout just down below so we see the result. So if I run this now, you should see our result is 0 through 5. You see that?
Yep.
So what could I do instead of saving the numbers 0 through 5? If I want to change this to save the numbers 1 through 6, what is one simple quick change I could do to this code to save?
Start for I equals 0, have I equals 1, like initialize it at 1.
That is one way, but I'd argue it's not the best way. We know this code is going to run 6 times. Here, I'll change I to 1, but you'll see if I run this code, it's not going to give us 1 to 6.
Oh, it started at,
What is this 3 doing here? Do you know why there's a 3 here?
Because in the previous line, we set our 0 as 3.
Correct.
Yeah.
So let me just comment out this 3 here, for example, say manually set to 3, set index 0 to 3, right? Even if I don't have the 3 there, and I comment that out, you'll still see there's a 0 there.
Okay.
Because the 0 is the default value there.
Yeah.
So in order for us to modify the first index of our array, we have to start at 0.
Okay.
What else could we change? If not this line, what other line do we have to change?
Numbers, the one below it?
Correct. So this will come in the first time we run this loop. I will be 0.
Right.
How can we change 0 to save into the first index the number 1?
I plus. Yeah, I plus plus.
I plus plus. Interesting. I hadn't thought about that. Let me try running that. It's a very interesting result. I never thought to do that. Very close.
Okay, that didn't work.
This is off by only 1 character. Only one thing needs to change now.
Oh, +1.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
I mean, there might be another way to do this that I'm not aware of, but I feel like this is the most direct thing. We're not actually trying to change I here. We're trying to change what are we saving into each element.
Oh, okay.
So by doing I plus 1 here, we're not actually changing I. We're just using I to derive a new value.
Okay.
So I'm not mutating I, if that makes any sense. I'm just using I as a default base. So we know that we want to modify index 0 to index 5. And we're going to save basically what's the index number? I plus 1. So this gives us the numbers 1 through 6. This is useful, let's say, if we're making a 6-sided die.
Oh.
This would be useful.
You got a low battery warning.
I have a low battery warning, or you have a low battery warning?
No, I'm 100%, but you got a low battery warning.
Well, I mean, it says 32%.
Yeah, you're 32. Okay.
Oh, but thank you for telling me about the warning. I am not plugged in.
Okay.
That's
because
very
at
good.
first I looked at mine and I'm like, wait, I'm 100. I'm confused. So
yeah, no, that's really good that you saw that because I did not see that.
Okay.
All right, I'm plugging in my computer right now. How unprofessional it'd be if we bothered to record this for the benefit of others.
Happens to everyone.
I started recording this morning because you said, hey Avi, you should record, or I said I should record, and we were like trying to encourage each other.
Yes.
And then my computer died, so I lost fortunately only 10 minutes of recording, but I'm so frustrated.
I know. Well, it's just dress rehearsal.
Yep, exactly. That's a very good way to look at it. 1 second, I'm almost plugged in here. And think of next question you might have. All right, I think we're all plugged in and ready to roll. Yep, cool. So then we had an extra use case here, which is really good that we added using the for loop. And this would allow us to do mutations as well. And I think that's what I'd like to do next.
Okay.
Permission, I will mutate this array.
Because they, in the book here, they talk about an enhanced for loop and a traditional for loop.
Enhanced for loop versus a traditional for loop. And that's news to me.
With the enhanced for loop, you do not have to be concerned about the size of array. You do not have to create an index variable to hold subscripts.
Is that a for each? Or is it a map? What's this enhanced for loop? Do you have a syntax for me?
I'm looking. It looks like, ouch.
My guess is it just takes the length of the array from the array. So that way you don't have to specify manually. Here I'm saying explicitly.
Right.
6.
For the general format for enhanced for loop is for data type, element variable, semicolon, array, statement, semicolon.
Mm-hmm.
Totally not useful. Okay, so here for, and then open parentheses, int, val,
Mm-hmm.
colon,
Mm-hmm.
and then numbers, and then close parentheses. Yeah, no, yeah.
You said numbers?
Yeah, and then after val is colon, not a semicolon.
Okay.
And above it, I forgot to tell you, go int, square bracket, numbers, and then equals, curly bracket, and then they just gave 3 numbers.
Got you. Okay, so I'll make
and
this be numbers 2, so that way we're not going.
Okay.
You're not getting a headache from figuring out which is which. I'm just going to put in these 3 numbers, 2, 4, 6.
And then you can do system out print.
I'm going to do numbers 2, and I'm going to try and
val. You can have print val, so, or numbers 2. Yeah.
Let's see if I'm getting some errors here. It looks like I may be missing a semicolon somewhere. Let me just try and run this. And oops, that's. It might just be the IntelliSense, which is kind of bonking out a little bit here. Let me try and run that. Let me see. No, that's not it. Okay, I'm gonna try running that and see what happens. See if I get a clear error message from the compiler. Okay, so it said exception in main, index 4, out of bounds for length 3. So it doesn't look like I'm allowed to use this syntax as is. I may have misread it or misinterpreted it. Can you compare the code I have here on lines 22 and 23 with what you have? Or 21, 22, and 23.
Okay, 21. Okay, so just try system out print VAL in the
Okay.
parentheses. So you don't need to declare the, yeah, try that.
Oops. There we go. Okay, I'll give that a run. Yeah, that was it.
So that must be why it's enhanced. Just
So we call this the how to use enhanced for loop.
yeah.
Okay. So I like that. I'm reading that and say for all the integer values inside of the array numbers too.
Which I guess is just a little simpler code.
Yeah,
And
I mean, you don't have to explicitly say how long numbers 2 is.
Right.
It could be 3, it could be 20. It'll take care of that for you.
Yeah, you don't declare the size. It just infers the size from whatever data you give it. So
that looks good to me.
That's the enhancement, apparently.
What would be the disadvantage to using this enhanced for loop?
You couldn't, could you get the n number by doing the -1 thing? It wouldn't.
So how would we how would we know that 2 is the first index, you know? Like, how can we say, like, for example.
Oh, well, I guess 2 would always be 0, you know, because it's the first one. So
Right, but let's say I want to programmatically print out that the first number, the number at index 0 is 2. How would I do that programmatically? Here, up here on line 18, I can just say at index I, the number is, you know, so I can do index, and I can do plus I plus is plus, where if I run it, it may complain to me that I'm mixing strings, but it's not here. It's saying index 0 is 1. Or it could say value at index 0 is 1. How can I do that down here when I don't have an I?
No, in their example, they just use like the next value is 3, the next value is 6, the next value is 4 or 9 or whatever. But they don't say, they don't match it up to the index value.
It might be that there's an advantage here where the traditional for loop lets you talk about the order or the position. It's definitely a thing you can do. Whereas I don't know if that's definitely something you can do. Here, so I'll put it here as a question. Okay. How or can I reference the index number using an enhanced for loop? So that's the question. I know that I can do that with the traditional for loop, so that's not a question.
It looks like if you need to do that kind of thing, it says you should use a traditional for loop to process your array.
Okay. Well, that's convenient. So we have an alternate syntax.
But it's also limited because
it's convenient,
because it
but it says a limitation.
Have an index.
Yep. So we've been able to, at this point, read out values and add values. By saying add values, I should say, is more correct to say we've been able to change the values inside of an array. If we want to actually add a new element, the 6th element, let's say, you know, right now, I'm sorry, 7th. Right now we have 6 elements in this array. Can we add a 7th? Is that allowed in JavaScript, in Java?
It
question
might be tricky, I think.
Might be tricky. May I add new items to arrays?
I mean, so
in Java.
You're changing
after
size.
They have been, yeah.
Because I think you can change the values. You know, if you have a 6 element array, you could change the 6 values a couple different times, but I don't think you can add like a 7th.
So in other words, change the size,
Yeah, I don't think.
array size. Well, so if without the syntax, without knowing how to add new items to an array in Java, I would simply go to Google.
Right.
So let's do that real quick. Java add new items or element to array. So let's just see what the first one gives us. So it looks like in this case here, they're actually creating a function which takes in an array.
Yeah, they said what you do is create a new array that's slightly bigger, you know, but empty, and then copy your old array into the new one, and then you have one empty space. You do a temporary array that's one element larger than the original.
Yeah. So in other words, the computer, you could say the compiler or the computer, is not responsible for, they're not going to give it to you out of the box. You have to know, you're going to have to make a new array to fit it, because arrays are constant in size. Yeah. So we'll answer this question.
So yeah, I can always make a bigger box and put my data in it, but I can't just make the original box a little bigger. Can't just add another row or line.
Length of data entries or size, or I should say quantity.
Right.
When you say length, we're talking really about quantity of items. So let's go ahead and do that. That's another thing we can do. Let's put it here. I'm going to say here, it's not technically low level strictly, nor is it high level. But let me put it here as, what else can you do? You can create a new array in order to, in quotes, increase the size of an array which is not big enough to hold more data, right? So let's say we have our 6 numbers here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we want to add a new number, which would be 7. Our array is of fixed size of 6. So we'd actually have to go and use something like this code here. I think this is a good candidate for next time. But we can see here in this Geeks for Geeks code that they defined an actual function here where they take in an array.
An array. Okay.
And the idea here is that n is what? Can you tell what n stands for here? It's a convention too. N is conventional. You should know it is something.
The biggest number, or like the size?
It's the size. You know it's a number because it's convention to use n in the context of arrays. Usually you might say, like, if it's a 2-dimensional array, it might be m by n.
Okay.
But in this case, it's n, which refers to number, the number of items in this array.
Right.
And that's just a convention. You're not required to call it n. And you're also not required to have a function. This is a function, it's not necessary, but it's convenient to have a function. So, you know, just walking you through this function, would you like to try and read out this function, or would you like me to?
Okay, public setting. They're creating an array of integers.
That's correct.
And then it says they're gonna add X. So
To the
N will
array.
be the size. Yeah, no,
Yes.
X. So integer N, so that means your size, like if it's 6 or 7. And then the next, after the comma, they're declaring that N is for an integer, and then after the comma, the next integer for X is what is going in the array.
Correct. That's the new
That,
number that's going to
right.
come to the array.
And it'll be like N number of X's in the array.
And number of x's.
Right.
I'm not sure what the n number of x's are.
Oh, so it'll be like 6 integers, which are the X integer. Yeah. So, oh, yeah. Okay. We'll go on.
So you said you're going to insert x's, but we're not inserting x's. We're only going to
No,
insert one number, which we're passing in as the parameter x.
right. That's a better way to say it.
Also, there's only one x. And you said, I heard plural, so I just want to make sure.
But that's as it's looping. So like.
Right. But you notice that there's no x inside of the loop. So let me walk us through it real quick. So this is, as they say here, the comment, this is a function to add x. They say in array, but we really say to the array.
Okay.
We define some memory called I. What is this for? We'll find out later. We don't know just yet what they're using I for because it's not clear right here, but it's convention.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure if it's the best convention, but it's convention to use I at least. Then we define this new array. This is going to be our new array with the new element added to it. We define it with the new size. So the old array was of length n, so it goes to stand if we're adding one more item, the new size will be n plus 1. It'll be one longer. Now we're saying we can go through the old array, and move those items over. And this is where you can see the traditional for loop. For some reason, they left the int I outside. Now, why would they do that? There might have been some sort of benefit, but in this case, I don't believe I was used anywhere else. So I just think they were, for some reason, deciding to break up they could have just said int I down here, and that would have been perfectly fine. It might be some sort of advanced memory saving technique, but I don't think there's any special advantage to my knowledge for having int I be outside. So we go through this for loop. We move all the old items over. This is our old array, and it moves each item into the new array, one by one. Then lastly, we're going to move x into the last index. We know that n, being the size of the new array, will also be the last element.
The last element.
It should be the right, the size of the n being the size of the old array.
Right.
That number, if it's length 6, think about it. If we use 6, which was the length of the old array, as an index number now, it would be the new last index number.
And we haven't, we wouldn't really make it any.
Quick check here. Bigger. For a length 6 array, what number is the last index?
5.
That's correct.
0, 1,
That's
2, 3,
correct.
4, 5.
So if we had an array of length 6 and we added 1 to it, we'd be adding to the index 6. So that's what we're doing down here at this last line. We'd be adding to index 6. And then you could just pass back out of this function. We could just go ahead and take this code.
Yeah.
It's good code. It's not bad code, but also I would change it just for my own personal happiness because I like using the conventional for loop. And no, there might be a good reason not to, but unless I know the reason why, I'm not going to change it up, not knowing why. So just leave it like that, like the traditional
Okay.
structure. And so let's try use this add x. I'm gonna try and use this add x function on our numbers2 array. So I'm gonna say numbers2 is the result of add x, where we will pass in, let's look at our, just by hovering my mouse over the function here in Repl.it, I can actually see what the function signature is and the
Right.
parameters. So first we're gonna pass in n. What should n be for numbers2?
Oh, numbers 2 is n is, it's, well, 3.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So this one is relying on the programmer to do the work. There might be
Okay.
a nicer way to do this, but for now, let's just follow the contract. Next, we're gonna pass in the array that we want to modify. What is that called?
Numbers 2.
That's correct. This is like a quiz show.
Yeah.
All right, it's not happy with that yet just because we're missing one more.
One more.
So let's see if it'll tell me, yep. And what is int x supposed to be?
What we want to add to it.
What number would you like to add to our numbers2 list? Array, sorry, it's an array.
Okay, 4, I guess.
We're gonna add the number 4. Okay, so let's, we're gonna print out, let's say here, just do a system.out.println of like a little, like, I just want a little bit of like a visual break. So on one line, we'll see 2, 4, 6 as it's printed out already. And then on the next line, we should see, I'm gonna print out all the numbers inside numbers2 again. Just copy and paste that code. We should see now what?
2, 4, 6, 4. Oops.
That's right. Can you help me find the error?
System out print. Did you forget a semicolon? Nope.
Nope. Look at the error message.
Oh, I see. You typed, instead of system, you on line 49, you change your N to an M.
And it's not just 49, but that is correct.
Oh, and 43, because you copy and pasted it.
Exactly. And it says so here that it was on 2 different lines. It's
okay.
It's amazing that the compiler here will catch not just the first error, but multiple of them. So
yeah, sometimes it just stops at the first one. Okay. So
I got those code fences. Those code fences are not perfectly
oh, yes,
showing up.
I see. So at first we had 2, 4, 6, and now we have 2, 4, 6, 4. So we did indeed add something to it.
Yeah. A trick question. If I wanted my second fence to be on its own line, how could I get it to be on its own line? These dashes here?
Yeah.
What could...
At the end of somewhere you put backs in. Well, you could try it inside inside the quotes. You could do a \n.
Okay, let me give that a run and see what happens. Works. Voila.
Okay,
perfect.
Good, it worked.
So you have mastered the new line / followed by n, where it's actually, you can see here, it's not quite red. It's, you have to have good color sensitivity for that, but regular string text is red, like a dark red here.
And the other is pink.
The special characters, exactly. There's kind of like a pinkish red, lighter color. So cool. Okay. So we were able to successfully, using this new addX function, we were able to successfully add the number 4. It required us to know the length of our
array,
first. And that's That might be something that's just an inherent thing to Java, or it might be something we could change. Like we might be able to like dynamically ask numbers 2, what is your length, you know?
Okay.
Like, could we do something like this? Oops, I pasted the wrong thing here. Let's say I'm gonna do this, you know, length. Would that work? Cannot invoke length on array type int.
Okay.
Yeah. So why is that the case? Maybe it needs to be a property, not
Right.
a function. Let's just see if we can do that, and that works. It seems to work. So
okay.
it might
Interesting.
be the case that you can dynamically ask in Java the length, you know, where this in this case we're asking for the property or the attribute of the array. So like for example, where we're doing this for loop here,
Right.
instead of writing 6, I could maybe instead do numbers dot length, and then we would be getting dynamically the values. Let me try running this and just make sure that this code doesn't break and still works as we expected. Yeah, it still works perfectly. So
Okay.
I like this dynamic usage of dot length more so than hard coding. We call it hard coding when you use an actual number, or you could say like using magic numbers. This
Yeah.
is not a
No.
magic number. This length belongs to numbers. We can actually understand that length is coming from numbers. Whereas if I put the number 6, someone might be like, why 6? Why not 4? Why not 20? That's just an arbitrary number. But this is not supposed to be arbitrary. We're supposed to, in this case, I'm saying, I want to get all the numbers out of an array, but it presupposes that I actually knew the length, and I don't necessarily know the length as the
Okay.
human programmer, right? So I feel like we did a pretty good initial foray into arrays in Java.
I think so.
And I'd like to take a break here. But we did clear our last, this wasn't like the only way to do it. This wasn't necessarily the simplest way to do it, but we did indeed pass an array as an argument where we made numbers 2 on line 42, the array numbers 2, and then we passed it as an argument on line 48 to the addX function.
Right.
Or method, you could say.
Okay.
So I'm gonna stop the video here unless you want to say last thing. Any last
No,
words?
that's good. And
Cool. Let me stop the
digest
recording.
this,
You
and
got it.
we'll talk later.
I'm stopping the recording. Here we go.